In the quiet hours before dawn, the mountains of Waziristan seem peaceful again. The mist hides the scars of war, craters in the ground, burnt-out jeeps and bullet holes in the walls of empty homes. But beneath that silence, the land breathes a kind of fear that has no sound. In one small village, a family prepares to leave. The father once worked as a schoolteacher, the mother ran a small tailoring shop. Now their home stands on the edge of what locals call no man's land. There are no police, no army patrols, only men with long hair, black flags, and old rifles walking freely in the alleys. They move like ghosts, yet their presence fills every corner. Every day, more families pack their lives into old trucks and head south. The roads out of Khyber and Orakzai are crowded with people escaping not a foreign army, but their own forgotten war. The children ask, "When will we come back?" And the elders remain silent. They've lived through this before, and they know what comes next. In Islamabad, behind tall gates and glass offices, the reality feels distant. Politicians argue on live television about who is to blame. Some say it's the fault of dawn breaks over the mountains of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The light touches the peaks gently, but beneath that calm horizon, something darker moves. Villages that once woke to the sound of prayer now wake to the echo of gunfire. The winds that used to carry the scent of wheat now carry whispers. The Taliban are back. It began quietly. Small attacks, scattered reports, and officials assuring the public that everything was under control. But control is a fragile illusion, one that begins to shatter when roads become unsafe, when schools close out of fear, when soldiers stop smiling at checkpoints. The frontier that once marked the border between two nations is now the front line of something much larger. Struggle for Pakistan's soul. The Taliban's re-emergence in Pakistan wasn't sudden. It was born from the vacuum left behind after the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. When the Taliban reclaimed Kabul in 2021, the ripples didn't stop at the Durand Line. They surged across it. Militants who had once fled into Afghanistan found protection, regrouped and returned with renewed strength. Pakistan, which had long played the double game of fighting extremism while negotiating with it, suddenly found itself caught in its own web. By late 2024, the attacks had grown bolder. Police stations were stormed, convoys ambushed, and border posts overrun. The flag of the Pakistani state, once fluttering over remote outposts, was replaced by the white banner of the Taliban. Each town that fell was not just a loss of land, it was a blow to the country's fragile unity. In the tribal areas, people began to live under two governments, one official, one in the shadows. In Swat, echoes of the past returned. The same valleys that had once witnessed the rise of Malala now trembled again under the weight of new rule. Markets fell silent. Journalists disappeared. Fear returned like an old ghost. Inside Islamabad, the government's response was divided. Some called for negotiation, an attempt to reach another peace agreement, the kind that never truly brings peace. Others demanded a full-scale military operation, a repeat of Zarb-e-Azb. But the army was stretched thin, and the public's faith had eroded. Inflation, corruption, and political chaos had already weakened the state. The Taliban only needed to push where the cracks already existed. For many soldiers, the war was personal. Young men barely in their 20s sent to defend checkpoints that no longer had backup. Families in Peshawar and Quetta receiving folded flags instead of sons. And in every funeral, the same question lingered. How did we get here again? The Taliban's strategy was precise, not to conquer cities outright, but to bleed the state from within. They targeted the edges, police posts, intelligence officers, tribal elders who cooperated with the government. Each attack sent a message. We are still here. Each negotiation offered a trap. Let us breathe, and we will not bite. Meanwhile, international attention was fading. The world, focused on Ukraine and Gaza, barely noticed the quiet collapse happening in Pakistan's northwest. Aid slowed, support dwindled, and Pakistan's allies offered only words. In the villages of North Waziristan, locals began to say, "The war never ended. It only changed its name. Men who once fought against the Taliban now whispered their names again, this time with resignation. Women stopped sending their children to school. Nights grew longer, quieter, and far more dangerous. As 2025 approached, reports began surfacing of Taliban control expanding into settled districts. Videos emerged showing their convoys moving freely, their courts functioning, their commanders giving speeches. And somewhere in the midst of that chaos, the line between Afghanistan's Taliban and Pakistan's Taliban began to blur. The Pakistani state tried to project strength, press conferences, military briefings, promises of victory, but on the ground, reality was slipping away. The fall wasn't like in the movies. No explosions, no flags burning, no sudden collapse. It was slower, quieter, like sand slipping through fingers. Every checkpoint abandoned, every deal made in desperation, every village lost. All of it added up. Not the fall of a government, not yet, but the fall of certainty, of control, of belief. And that's how the fall begins. Not with a bang, but with silence. The silence of leaders who don't speak, the silence of allies who don't help, the silence of a people who no longer believe. Pakistan stands now at a crossroads. One road leads to resistance, to reclaiming what's lost. The other leads deeper into the shadows, where the flag may still wave. But the land beneath it belongs to someone else. The question is not whether Pakistan can fight back. It's whether it still has the will to. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are not fought in the mountains or the streets, but in the hearts of those who have already begun to lose hope. News anchors speak in urgent tones each night, their voices trembling between patriotism and panic. Is this the beginning of the end? One asks on live television. But the question lingers unanswered. The truth is no one knows. The system feels heavy, unresponsive, as if the state itself is watching events unfold rather than controlling them. Meanwhile, along the Durand Line, fighters cross freely under the cover of night. Some are veterans of 2 decades of war in Afghanistan. Others are new recruits, born after the first wave of violence ended. For them, this is not just a rebellion. It's a continuation of a cause their fathers began. They call it the unfinished jihad. In the border towns, local tribal leaders try to negotiate, to reason with the militants, but most are silenced quickly. Some flee to safe cities, others disappear altogether. The message is clear: obedience or elimination. Inside military headquarters, generals gather around a large wooden table. Reports from intelligence agencies paint a grim picture. Infiltration in local police forces, sympathizers in government offices, and funding streams coming from deep networks stretching beyond the border. It's not just a war in the hills anymore. It's a war that's sea